Here's what's really necessary to publish content that converts visitors into sales. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. Now, again, I hear this from copywriters all the time. My customer doesn't understand what is necessary to actually write copy that sells. So you've probably seen it. A customer comes to you and says, look, I'd like a sales letter, I'd like some lead generation pieces, and maybe some articles for the blog. And you say, great. Tell me about your customer. And they say, oh, it's just, people who buy stuff. Okay. Who can buy your product or who's the best to buy your product? They say, well, everybody can buy our product. And it's, we want everybody to buy it. You know, as a copywriter, as a marketer, that you need to have a specific target audience because you're not writing to a market, you're writing to buyers in a market who represent real live human beings. A lot of folks say, well, write me 12 podcast articles or 12 articles that can be used as podcasts. I kind of got ahead of myself there because very often your feature length content or a series of content can be easily printed and put as blog posts, but then you can come back later and have them voiced over or use them as outlines for an actual podcast. And now you've written the work once and you've gotten many uses out of it. But you ask them, okay, what topic or what theme should we write these 12 articles? They say, oh, just about whatever it is that we sell. Do you have this frustration? Well, that's because the customer doesn't understand what is necessary to make content work in a digital environment or even a print environment. So let me start with a print environment because it's actually the easier environment to work with. So in a print environment, you buy a mailing list. So you rent a mailing list most likely, or you can buy a mailing list, or you can take your customer list and then send the customer list to a list service and they'll tell you what lists to rent based on actual customers. And so it kind of bypasses the customer avatar a little bit because you can interview salespeople and kind of, have a list and interview the salespeople that got those people and then ultimately come up with some content. But now you have a mailing list that you've rented. You can write a letter that introduces a concept and offers more information. So they reply for an informational kit. Maybe you've written a brochure, an informational kit, and kind of a salesmanship in print, or maybe you're just setting an appointment. But you send the letter out on the mailing list. You're looking for the number of responses and what's called a double down date. So that's the date in which, or the doubling date, the date in which the majority of your responses have come back, and there's probably not going to be any more responses. So you want to send the next letter. So now you have a series of letters that goes out. They're going to specific people. You know a lot about these people. You can count. You can measure. It takes a little longer than digital marketing, but it's very, very simple. For the price of a stamp, you're showing up in front of the person who's been targeted for what it is that you have to offer. Now let's switch over to the digital world. In the digital world, you can take a list of customers, upload it to the different platforms to find the same audience. But because we're not sending it to their homes or to their businesses at a specific address, we don't know the person's address, we don't know their email necessarily, we have to put a small classified ad, which is a pay-per-click ad, in front of that individual to get them to click, which cookies the individual, and then drops them off at a landing page. Once they're at the landing page, they have to opt in because we don't know who they are other than that they clicked. Now, the platforms that we advertise on do know a lot about these individuals, may even know their email addresses, may even know their physical addresses, may even know their cell phone number, but they're not going to give us that information unless we pay them to get it. But, there's these digital privacy laws. And so we have to get them to our website and get the opt in. And once we've got the opt in, we can append the remaining data. So you may not know this, but once I get someone's email address, I put them in my customer relationship management system, my contact manager. And then once they're in the contact manager, I send the emails off to a service that gives me people's phone numbers. I usually only so if I only have an email from somebody, I only care to get their area code and their zip code. Okay. I use that for mapping and so that I can narrow the targeting of my advertising, but I don't pay for the whole email address. If I got the email address, I don't pay for the whole postal address until I'm getting ready to send a postal campaign, because it's easier to just follow the offline marketing method and rent an actual highly qualified buyers list from a list service and then send a postcard or send a letter than it is to rely on appending data, because again, The audience match is going to get me close enough, but the rented mailing list will get me right on target. So we're still talking about the digital world. Somebody has clicked from social media, they've clicked from a search engine ad, they've clicked from an article you have on a target publication, they're at your website, you still don't know who the person is. So we're relying on analytics to tell us in bulk how many people visit it, what's the general idea of their demographics if you have enough volume, and then whether or not they opted into the form. Now, once they've opted into the form, you now have permission to follow up, and we can send emails. We can upload their email address to better target our pay-per-click advertising. We can do retargeting. Do you see how complex this is getting? And then ultimately, we can follow up with our emails and our other posts. So, from a copywriter's perspective, in the offline world, you were writing a lead generation letter, you're writing a sales letter, and you're writing some kind of informational kit. In the digital world, you're writing pay-per-click ads, social media posts, blog posts, email follow-ups, email for cold lists, email for warm lists, email for hot lists, content on a website that is informational, content that supports the decision making, content that is more sales letter or the sale. You're writing catalog content. You're writing follow-up email campaigns for people you already know their email address. You're writing follow-up email campaigns for people who you know their email address, but they haven't opened an email and they haven't clicked on anything, so they're kind of cold again. Do you see what's happening here? You've got the pay-per-click ads for people who retarget it, to people who have never talked to you before, and the people who look like the people who've interacted with you in the past. Now, combining both of these, because you really should be a multi-channel marketer, it's a lot of work. But your potential clients do not understand this. They think they can just write a tiny classified ad and become a millionaire. They think they can just do a podcast and become a millionaire. They think they could just buy some pay-per-click, become a millionaire. Until you realize that Google themselves advertises Google Ads services not on Google Ads, because if Google Ads was good enough to do that, they would do it because they have the volume and the search and everything, but they will send you a letter. They'll have a sales rep call you. They'll send you a postcard to advertise digital marketing. When that clicks in your head, you realize there's a lot more to this than you might even think. But it's what you know is necessary to get sales, to generate leads, to create and keep profitable customers is far beyond what your client knows. So what do we do? First off, I follow Gary Halbert's method. I will get out general education information to generate leads. I'll help people understand what the problem is. I'll help individuals kind of identify that they don't know what they're talking about and they need to get more information. But then I only offer services to people who already understand what's necessary. I'm not in the business of teaching a client or a vice president of sales or a marketing director the 1,000 things that are necessary to do the work. It's okay if it remains a black box to them, as long as they understand what the problem is and how dangerous it is for them not to understand the how to measure. See, we skip the what's getting done, and we go give them the high level what's being done, but we skip it, and then we focus on how to measure. Now, once they know how to measure, that black box better work. And it gives you flexibility because the black box constantly changes, and what worked last year isn't going to work this year, unless you're in a more stable marketing environment like what we've described in the direct mail or the offline marketing. People are still going to trade shows and making sales because a trade show is something that's familiar, and if you can generate a lead at a trade show, you can follow up in 50 different ways. If you generate a lead online, doesn't just because you have permission to send them an email doesn't mean you have permission to call them. And they may not even remember where they put those emails. So you sometimes have to build a little relationship up with the email and get them to give you the phone number and then call them as soon as you get the phone number. You tell them, hey, if you give me the phone number, we'll call and schedule an appointment. Hey, give me the phone number. We're going to get on a webinar and we're going to have all the questions answered on a webinar. Again, the complexity of this, you know the complexity. Your customer does not know the complexity. So you feel compelled to impress them by explaining it to them. The customer's head gets overwhelmed, their eyeballs pop out, their head explodes, and nobody gets the sale. They don't get more sales. They don't increase the number of leads. They don't generate more revenue. They don't get better return on investment when it comes to their advertising. And you don't get a client. So I'm going to wrap this up with how do we solve this? Number one, focus on people and industries that already use direct response marketing. Okay? Because I'm not here churning out scammers. There are scammers out there that will use the overwhelm in order to pitch services and then talk about impressions and brands and stuff like that. The measure that I'm advocating here is leads and sales. If that potential client does not measure the leads, where they come from, how many leads are they getting, which leads are qualified, which leads are not, then you don't want them as a client. Okay, it's an uphill battle to educate them. Now, if you have enough of them and they've got enough money to spend, then yeah, go ahead and help them because you've got a large ignorant marketplace. But I don't like working with ignorant people. I want to work with catalog companies, publishers. I want to work with manufacturers. I want to work with people who have high ticket sales and can afford to measure. What is a lead cost? If you ask them that question and they don't know, they may not be a very good customer because they're only going to judge the activity on the cost they spent with you, not the value in which you brought them by distributing that cost over a number of highly qualified leads. Next, you want to make sure they're measuring sales. Where are the sales coming from? What's great about digital marketing is that online sales are extremely easy to track. You can know where the sale came from, what led to the sale, what was the kind of the attribution of the sale, what type of lead. All that's beautiful. And if you didn't know, when I put your email in my contact manager, I'm using a CRM system. It doesn't matter which one I'm using. All the majors can do this. I know what page you visited on the website. Every page is categorized by the intent of the page. And so if you're landing on a sales page, I can call you up. I can send you a personal email. I noticed lately a lot of folks have been opted in and they haven't done the double opt-in. So I can send them a personal message and say, hey, I noticed you opted in a couple days ago. Want to make sure there's no technical problems because you haven't double opted in. Here's what you need to do. About half of the people get that message, it works out. The other half, nothing happens. They eventually get purged from my system. But here's the thing. I can identify technical problems. I can put somebody in to make sure all my forms work. I can then identify possible content that generates the highest number of opt-ins and put that in my follow-up or my confirmation pages. And I can improve the value of what I'm delivering to subscribers. You can do the same thing for your clients. And so there is a functional element that you will keep as a black box because it's changing all the time and it is client dependent. You'll write up a statement of work that'll identify what you're doing and why you're doing it. Prior to the sale, all you need to share is what you're going to do at a very high level and then why it's so important to do. Okay, you're using an AIDA formula. You're getting their interest. Hey, do you want more sales? You want more opportunities to mention and to pitch what it is you have to offer? Well, then here's what you got to do. 1, 2, 3. Here's what you do, and here's why these steps are so important. I'll end with why this is so important. If you don't understand the complexity of what's necessary for content marketing, if you don't understand the complexity of what's necessary for e-commerce, if you don't understand the complexity that's necessary for reaching affluent customers and high ticket sales, then you're doing your customer a disservice. You're doing your client a disservice. But if you're working with somebody and you discover quickly they don't understand this stuff, then it's better to take that energy and focus on somebody who does, because you can always passively educate them. So I'll give you a tip. One thing I do, I've got a report, 101 strategies for more profitable customers. If I'm working with a prospective client and they're like, hey, I'm not sure I want to do new things. I don't really know what I'm doing right now to get customers. I say, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'd love to help you get some free education so that you'll understand where your customers are coming from, as well as gain ideas and concepts. They're going to help you get more customers. Let me get your address. I'm going to send you a free report. Now, this report is a tips report. It contains 101 strategies to create key profitable customers. And I want you to go through the strategies and pick the ones that you most likely see working in your business. And then they come back to me with 3 or 4 strategies, and that's what we work on. because they've already convinced themselves that they're necessary. Now, very often they'll go through and they'll notice that they're doing 5 or 10 things, and they'll start doing a little homework and see whether those 5 or 10 things are helping their business. And then we have a more educated buyer. They're much easier to work with. They pay, stay, and refer. And ultimately, it's not that uphill battle of teaching them. There's a lot of folks out there that are wasting time and resources and going broke trying to educate a marketplace. Okay. You're not educating the marketplace. You're helping them understand the problems they have, the obstacles they face, and how your solution eliminates these things and brings them towards the outcomes they desire. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. I hope you've taken sufficient notes to implement this in your business. Stop chasing customers who don't understand what it is that you do enough to make the purchase. Help those who can help themselves by answering the basic questions you need to be foundational to writing. And if they don't have a customer avatar and they don't know what their key products are and they don't have these things, offer that as a service and help improve what they do so that they are more capable of generating revenue and paying you for your services. If you have questions about what I've covered here today, visit us at www.adbriefings.co.uk. We have a number of coaching programs, services, and other solutions to help you transform your freelance copywriting business into a small marketing agency. In fact, a very powerful agency that helps you produce passive income in a very short amount of time. Again, like and subscribe. I'm supposed to ask people that. But more importantly, visit www.adbriefings.co.uk to ask your questions, because questions are the gateway to the results that you're looking for. Thanks for listening.